I think it's safe to say that we all want to make sure that when we craft and when we cut, we want to be as efficient as possible because there's only so many hours of the day. And the last thing you want to do is sit around trying to figure out how to do this or that. And in this video today, what I want to talk about is kind of the pitfalls, downfalls, or shortcomings of some of the software out there that prevents you from doing just that. Now, before I actually discuss the solution, I kind of want to take a minute to explain what I mean and maybe even give a little bit of background as to why we do the things we do and why sometimes they may seem inconvenient. So by the time this video is through, hopefully you'll have a better understanding of why files are structured the way that they are and why certain softwares maybe have a hard time manipulating them. So what I first want to go through, what I want to show you is we're going to talk about Cricut Design Space because that is the most popular software right now. This video actually is probably geared more towards the users of the Cricut as well as the Brother Scan and Cut. And in my opinion, and a lot of people will agree, the softwares, both of them, are very primitive. I use that word a lot when I describe these softwares because in essence that's what they are. If you compare Design Space or the Scan and Cut Canvas to such programs as Silhouette Studio or in this case Sure Cuts a Lot, they are in fact very primitive. And I'm going to explain why and what we can do about that. So I'm actually in Design Space right now and I want to kind of show you some file structure stuff here. I'm going to open up these files here and the ones with the score marks. The ones that don't have score marks, they're really not that significant. But what I do want to explain here, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And actually, for those of you that follow us closely, you know that we are now experimenting and our last freebie actually contains solid score marks. So that is a great example actually. Let me show you why things need to be the way that they are with our files. So I get a lot of emails saying, why can't I just ungroup certain things and move them? Well, I'll show you. So in the case of the Cricut, which in my opinion, despite the fact that the software is primitive, it's probably the most advanced piece of hardware. When I say hardware, I mean the actual machine. Software being Design Space. The hardware, top-notch, the best out there. Especially the Maker with the new scoring wheel. There's nothing else that compares to it. Now, the software, it's great, it works, but when it comes to some of the key things that you guys want to manipulate or alter, or you want to, let's say, you cut something out and occasionally maybe your machine misses something or the blade gets snagged and you have to recut something. That is where we kind of may run into problems with a software like this that is missing just actually, in my opinion, one key feature, which I will show you in Sure Cuts a Lot. But first let me explain the file here. So this is a little rosette for a place card. If I can find it here, it's somewhere. I'll show you a picture on the website here. Here you go. This is the little freebie. Let's see here. There it is. Okay. You can see this shape here. And you can see that we've got solid score lines because we were able to use the score tool, the actual rotary one. Not the rotary blade, just the rotary score tool. So in order for that to happen, in order for that to work, we have to put, and let me actually hide some of these things here so we can simplify this a little bit here. I'm going to hide this one here. Where's the other one? There's the other one. Okay, so you'll notice that if you take and hide one of these layers, this layer is the score mark layer, okay? And this layer here, I'm turning it off, is the actual cut. So if this was all together in one layer, you'll see that they're on separate layers here, If this was all together on one layer, you would not be able to take advantage of the scoring tool on the Cricut, because as a Cricut user, you understand that in order to make that score, you have to click on this little scissor here and set that to score, okay? If you don't do that, it is literally just gonna cut right through it, and you will not end up with this result here, okay? So therefore, we do need to place that score layer on a separate layer. Otherwise, you would have no ability to manipulate and set what you want it to do. Now, for those of you that don't have the Maker, and let's say you have the just the Cricut Explore Air or the Brother Scan and Cut, okay? Well, let's say you have the Air, and let's turn this off for a second. Here is the one with the perforated score mark. Same thing, you'll end up with the same end result, but for those that don't have the Maker, we have the score marks on a separate line, or a separate layer, I should say. So you can go in here and you can leave it as cut, which is fine because it's not going to slice through it because it's perforated. But there's also certain people that would prefer to maybe manually score this because they don't like the perforations. So in that case, because they're on separate layers, you can turn off that layer and do the scoring manually. If you have a little scoreboard, you can score it that way. Okay, so that is one of the reasons, actually it is the reason, especially when it comes to scoring, the score layers need to be put on a separate layer in order for you to take advantage of some of these highly desired features that you're paying top dollar for with your cutting machine. Now, in the example of a file without score marks, you'll notice here on the right-hand side under Elements Rogue, it doesn't have two layers. There's just one layer, okay? So what you can do to isolate these, you can actually just click on these and click the contour button, and then you can click on the ones that you don't want, and that will leave only the piece that you do want, okay? So as far as manipulating things, and let's say, you know, the example I just used, let me go back to contour. Let's say you were cutting this out and this piece here was the only piece that didn't cut properly. You don't want to have to recut this. You want to use a piece of scrap. You can click contour and just remove by selecting the pieces that you don't want, and you'll be left with the piece that you do, so that you only have to recut that one piece. Now, I'm not even going to show the Canvas software because it doesn't even have a contour feature. There are some features, there are some workarounds in the Brother Scan and Cut Canvas software. I believe that the desktop version actually gives you a little bit more wiggle room with what you can do, but honestly, the process to me is very painstaking and I don't recommend it. And I'm going to show you an alternative. And one thing I do want to mention is that I in no way, shape, or form want you to have to spend more money. But the old saying, time is money. And personally, I don't want to get frustrated when I'm crafting. It's like counterproductive. It goes against everything that crafting stands for. Obviously, there's going to be times where you're frustrated, but for something this simple, you shouldn't have to be frustrated. There's an easier solution. Yeah, there's an investment, but take a look. So let me show you, for example, here in Shortcuts a lot. Again, this is a third-party program. Now, whether you're a Cricut user or a Brother Scan and Cut user, let me open up a file that contains many layers with score marks. Okay, now even with design space for the Cricut, this is going to be difficult to isolate one of these pieces because of the score lines. I can show you how it's done, but let me show you how easy it is to do this in Shortcuts a lot. So here I brought this file in, and actually I had it in my library, but if you want, you can just hit this little button here that says import, and you can import an SVG file. I don't have one on here right now, but you would just bring it in just like you would in any other program, and it would appear on your mat. The key tool that Design Space and the Canvas software is missing is an eraser tool. So simple, right? Don't you wish you could just erase the parts that you don't want? Well, here you go. So I click on the eraser tool. Let's say I was making the seahorse box and one of these wall pieces didn't cut out properly. And let's say it was this big one, okay? I grab my eraser tool, I erase the parts that I don't want. Okay, no slicing, no ungrouping, no welding, no this or that. Actually, this is almost kind of meditative and relaxing to go through and just erase the parts that you don't want. You can use a square eraser, and you have the opportunity to change it to a circle too if you need to get into little areas where a circle may be a little more helpful. You can also change the size of your eraser. Okay, you can make it huge. But anyway, that took me a matter of 10 seconds. Then what I'll do is I will go to File, I will export the file as an SVG. You can see here that you have the option to export as an SVG file. And you also, for our Scan and Cut users, if you don't want to use an SVG and you want to keep it in your native FCM format, you have the option of doing that right here. But typically, the newer Scan and Cuts, they all support SVG files. But again, FCM is an option right from the software. So we'll select SVG, and I'm just going to call this Fix, hit Save. Now in Shortcuts a lot, if you have a Cricut, there's actually a little checkbox here to make it Design Space compatible. So it's completely optimized for Design Space. I hit OK, and now I can go back to my Design Space, go to Upload, Upload Image, Browse. There's my fix.svg, saved it to the desktop, and there it is, all alone by itself. Remember, we started with this, and then by just using the eraser tool, we went in, erased it, and it's ready to go. Okay, so you see how much of a time saving that is. Now, let me show you what that same process and basically how long it would take to do that same process in Design Space. I'm not even going to get into Canvas because that is just, to me, it's kind of, it's just overwhelming. Let's just leave it at that. So here is another file that has two sections. Now let's say that that this part cut out okay, but this part here didn't. Okay, so let's contour it. Oh wait, we can't. I have it highlighted. We can't contour it because we have two layers. Okay, so what we need to do first is we need to ungroup it. When we ungroup it, it takes those two layers that were once grouped and separates them. So you'll see here, here's the first layer. It's our little score mark. And then here's the other layer. No, that isn't it. Yeah, it is. It's the cut layer. So in this case, this is actually a good example for when it's easy. So what I can do, because we're just trying to isolate our little turkey head here, I can take and I can highlight, I can actually click on it here. I'm going to click on it here and just hit delete. It gets rid of that. And then I can highlight this. Now I can contour. Now I can hide that piece. And now I have this isolated. Okay, but let me show you a tougher example. Great, so here we go. This is going to be a great example. This is from our Scarecrow bundle. Okay, let's say that piece number 1 just didn't cut out properly and I need to get rid of it. So, or I need to recut it, I should say. I need to get rid of all these other pieces. I don't want to waste all this paper. I want to cut just piece number 1. Okay, so first thing we got to do is we got to ungroup. Okay, now that it's ungrouped, we can't just delete the score marks. We need the score marks, but the score marks are all together. An eraser tool would be wonderful right now, but we don't have that luxury. So what we need to do is we need to ungroup this. Okay, so let's ungroup it. And then now we can actually select the actual cut layer and contour that. So let's hide all of them except for this one. All right, well there it is. So now we have it, but that leaves us with all these score marks. And in order to get rid of all these score marks, we have to highlight this, we have to contour this, and we literally have to click on every single little score mark here to remove it. I believe that you may be able to go in and let me see if we can, using a shape, I think we can maybe draw a shape and like slice it out or weld it out or something like that. But I actually don't think that's even possible. There may be another way around this. Let me see what we can do here. Let's flatten this. Okay, and then let's see what we got. Okay, so yeah, so if you draw a shape over it and flatten it, then we can probably, let me just draw another shape and unlock that. Let's make it here. Okay, and I just had a plugin error. Anyway, I'm sure many of you have run into this, and it's restarting now. I guess that's another great example of maybe why having a program like this with an eraser tool is going to save you time and frustration. Anyway, I will happily create, actually I already have created a video under the help section, under design space. I do have an article that says, how do I isolate specific parts within an SVG file? This one details how to do so with files that contain score lines. So I have an article that shows you how to do that. And you can see here, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, step 6, a lot going on, okay? Rather than doing that, you can grab your eraser and just erase it, save the file, and you're ready to go. Okay, so again, I'm showing this because I do get emails. I think it's more from Brother Scan and Cut users because a lot of them live in the UK or outside of the US, and maybe 12 by 12 scrapbook paper or cardstock isn't as available as it is here in the States, and they typically use A4 sizes. So sometimes they need to take our files and adapt them to the A4, okay? And that's another thing too. If let me bring up another file here. So let's just say, okay, this piece is a good example. Well, maybe not. Let me get rid of this one and maybe we'll do another one here. Hold on. Here we go. Okay, so this is from a project. I think it's called the Pumpkin Patch Light Ups. So this, obviously you can see, requires a full 12 by 12 sheet of paper. And our UK users with A4 paper are not going to be able to use this. So let me just zoom out a little bit. Okay, so what we can do, if you're a Scan and Cut user and you're using A4 paper, we can copy this, and then let's go to a new project and hit paste. We can right click and paste. So we have 2 copies of this in essence. Okay, so what I'm going to do on copy number 1 is I'm going to erase, let me grab my square eraser, let me erase these parts here so that this first section here fits within the A4 guidelines. Okay, and I think that after we erase this, it will. And now you'll see where the circle comes into play here. It's round and it allows me to get into this little area where the square wouldn't. Okay, so that's erased. Now we can just take and click this whole thing and make sure that it fits. And you can see here, now this piece fits within the 8.5 by 11 boundary. So this will now work on A4. Now we can go over here and we can erase the other part, or this part here. Let's just get rid of this too. Okay, so when I'm zoomed in more, I typically have more control. I'm trying not to overlap and encroach onto the other design there. Okay, there we go. And now I can just click on this, bring it over here, and now this will fit on the A4. And then it's a matter of going to File, Export, saving it as an SVG. I'll call this Pumpkin 1. Okay, or if you want, you can go File, Export, and save it as an FCM file for your Brother Scan and Cut. We'll call this Pumpkin 2. Okay, and now on my desktop here, You can see this is the first file that I fixed. It's an SVG. This is Pumpkin 1 that I just fixed. It's an SVG, and then here's Pumpkin 2, an FCM file that's ready to be used in Canvas. So in review, I think we'll all agree that we want to be as efficient as possible when we're crafting, for time reasons, for financial reasons, whatever it is. And I don't want to sell you on something unless I truly believe it. And again, it's up to you. You don't have to buy it. You can use whatever method you can find to get this done. But I wanted to show you a simple way to make life easier. I will include underneath this video a link to where you can get the Shortcuts a Lot software, and also where you can download it and take it for a test drive. Craft Edge allows you to download it and play with it for up to 15 days. The eraser tool is not the only feature. There's a lot of things that you can do with the software, including rhinestone templates. You can actually do way more designing and manipulating. There's a very robust trace feature, and a lot more. There's a ton of videos that I still have to make on this software to show you all of its potential. But anyway, so I hope this video was informative. I hope you learned something. And again, if you have any questions and want to know more about the software, you're welcome to contact me using the contact form on our website. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.